that the fact that Stephen, the name Stephen has already been used to refer to you has no constitutive role in my referring with
it does. And this is what this relation are. You see, the idea is supposed to be that there's some relation or other that holds between the expression, its place in the sentence, and an object. And that relation may actually include the fact that that word has been used to refer to the same object previously in the same discourse. It may in fact involve that. That would very much happen when you use, say, a nickname. So you use it for the first time, that can't be the relation. You make up some new name, and what R cannot be is that it's been used previously in the discourse, because it hasn't. It's new, so it's got to be inferred somehow. But once it's been used once, then you've now created a situation where it's much easier to use the very same expression to refer to something again, because it's been used. So now you've got a different relation, R. So it's not. So you use an expression. It doesn't mean that R has to be the same every time that expression is used. Right? It can vary from time to time. Yeah. I think in fact if you didn't have that, this would be sunk. And the sort of objection you were heading towards would be a serious objection if that weren't the case. Yeah. So it's vital that R does not have to remain constant across different uses of the word E. Okay, so here's a simple case now. Sue utters the sentence, Andy told him to call him. And let's suppose that she means that Andy told John to call him Andy. Then we can say that in uttering this sentence, Sue referred to Andy with Andy, relative to its one and only occurrence in the sentence. And she referred to, and also she referred to him with him. So she referred to Andy twice with the word Andy and the word him. And she also referred to John with the word him, relative to its first occurrence. Right? So what did she refer to with him in uttering this sentence? You say, that's not a well-formed question yet. Tell me which occurrence of him. Right? And you say, relative to the first occurrence, him refers to John, and relative to the second occurrence, him refers to Andy. So you referred to two people. She's referred to two people. She's referred to Andy. She's referred to John. She's referred to Andy twice, using different words, as it's turned out. One of the words being the same word she used a few milliseconds earlier to refer to somebody else. But we do that all the time. Right? I mean, when you spell it out, it's quite complicated. But actually, it's extremely simple when you describe it as just something we do all the time. Look, she's talking about Andy, she's talking about John, and she says that Andy told John to call him Andy. But she didn't use that. She just said Andy told him to call him. So it looks like we've handled all the complications. The fact that we've referred to one person with two different words, and we've referred to two different people with the same word at the same time, because it was relative to the occurrences of that word in the sentence. So there's a lot going on in that sentence that we've been able to explain using the Schiffer type definition. It was a slight modification of Schiffer definition.
May I ask you another thing about R?
Yes.
Someone could, you said that you want to characterize expression reference in terms of figure reference.
That's
okay.
the idea.
Someone could say that in this way you are kind of cheating, just because of the R that you use in the mutually know that R is expression reference.
No, R is supposed to be any relation that actually is working. Now, the relation is going to be that having been used to refer previously to that, which does not the same thing as expression reference, because you might actually use the same word to refer to lots of different people, so it can't actually be that expression reference is built into it. But further speaker reference can be built into it, certainly. Prior speaker reference can certainly be built into it. And regularity over prior speaker reference can be built into it as well. Right, so here's a question. So there's that simple sentence, Andy told him to call it. And then I've given this slightly more complicated rendering of it that makes sense of this. But now there's a question of psychological plausibility. Do ordinary speakers understand it this way? This is what seems to be going on in people's minds. Well, ordinary speakers understand quite well that someone can be referring to one person by his relative to his first occurrence and by somebody else relative to the second occurrence. So here's a nice case because everybody seems to get straight away what's going on in this example because everybody knows who the four Beatles were. So John told Paul that Ringo thought George had hidden his drumsticks inside his guitar amplifier. Now, everybody who's been alive at any point in the last 50 years, at least in the European or Anglo-American world, knows that it's likely to interpret this as whose drumsticks? Ringo was the drummer, everybody knows that, right? So everybody just immediately gravitates towards that reading, where it's Ringo's drumsticks. And then also think, well, it's not Ringo's guitar amplifier. Has anybody ever seen Ringo playing the guitar? Probably knows a little bit, but it's not like the rest, the other guys. Not like George, right, who's a fantastic guitar player. Probably that George had hidden them, so it's probably George's guitar. We know that George was the lead guitarist. So everybody sort of, gravitates towards that reading without much thought. Okay. It doesn't seem as if you have to go through this complex. I mean, some a little bit maybe, but it doesn't seem like a very complex story you have to go through in order to get this. And we all know that's not the only reading that's possible of that sentence. Right? I mean, clearly, it doesn't have to be that reading sentence. It's just the one that you just get without much work. All right. So now this meaning by expression. I'm going to use the following, referring with expression. You might say, well, there's lots of different notions. We've got referring in the first one, the basic notion of speaker reference, whether or not you use a word or whatever. And now we've got this notion of referring by, which is sort of pushed to one side, we don't really need it. We've got this notion of referring with an expression right now. You might say, well, don't we need this other one? You refer to something using an expression. So we're philosophers, we love making pointless distinctions. We could now say, let's have another one. Let's have what he referred to using it, which might not be what he's referring to with it. We could, maybe we could find it, but it's not obvious. So I'm going to say, look, we don't need another notion of referring with something versus referring using. Maybe somebody can find a case where we want a distinction. I don't think so. And here's another thing that I like here. Here's where we can just use the word mean instead of refer. I think this is the right way to go here. Because I don't know how it works in Italian, but certainly in English, you say, well, you don't have to say, well, who are you referring to? You say, who did you mean? Oh, I meant him. So I'm quite prepared to kick out, not only do I want to get rid of the word speaker, semantic reference, and object reference, I sort of want to get rid of the idea of speaker reference too, in a sense, and say there's a special type of speaker meaning, and it's meaning someone or other, or something or other, with a word. Okay? So,
well, in Italian would be, to whom did you intend to speak?
To speak. Oh, really?
Yes. You cannot say to you meant.
You can't say that. You can't say that. Who you
was intended to speak about.
But can you say, I can't speak that, I have to say it in French, to the, can you say that? You mean him?
Do you intend?
Yeah. You can't say, do you want to say him? You can't say, do you want to say him? No. But you can say I want to say when it's a whole sentence.
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
In French and Italian.
Yeah, okay. It's the same.
That's a
very strange form. All right. So that's it. So now we talked about this yesterday, so we don't have to worry about this. Look, many times the hearer gets it wrong. It's too bad. Life's tough. Okay. It doesn't alter the philosophical theory here, right? The speaker means what the speaker means. The speaker is referring to whoever the speaker is referring to. and sometimes the hero gets it wrong. Sometimes 6 billion people can get it wrong, and there's a scenario we had yesterday. So what? Is that going to lead to counterintuitive results? Maybe, in a certain type of case. Actually, I did do slides, but anyway, let's take this. Right. So look. Here are two, for any actual speech situations, you could be interested in the following two facts, right? Completely independent of any theory that anybody's got, right? You might not care about those things. So look, here are two things that are interesting. What the speaker meant, whatever it was, and what the addressee thought the speaker meant, right? They're two things. What the speaker meant and what the addressee thought it meant. Now, when things are going really well, they coincide. They're the same thing. And life's wonderful. But sometimes they don't. And it's just too bad. Sometimes the speaker just does not get what the speaker was the hero doesn't get what the speaker was referring to. Now, so there's a strong temptation amongst philosophers to say, oh, well, what was really meant? What was really meant? Is what the speaker meant what was really meant? Or what the addressee thought the speaker meant what was really meant? And this is where I want to say, look, only somebody as idiotic as a philosopher could ask this sort of question. It's a philosophical question in the worst sense of philosophical question, right? It's a type that could only occur to you if you had some sort of transcendent idea of reference and meaning that transcends people and their uses of it, and you think there's something out there that is the fact of the matter, completely independent of the people using the language. I think that's a very weird idea. Okay. Now you can see, mentioning names, where in the history of philosophy this sort of idea has come from, and this idea that the word transcendent should give it away. Right? But it's a strange idea. That there's something that, some third thing that somehow one and two are supposed to be approximating or aiming towards, and sometimes they both hit together. That's not what the coincidence is. The coincidence is when they just do get the same thing. Right? There is a proposition, right? Okay, there's that. But to say that it's the one that was really meant, no, there's the proposition the speaker meant, and the propositions the hero thought it meant. And usually they go together. It's the same proposition. Okay? Sometimes they don't. It's just too bad. But this is no argument for the existence of some third thing in which they're supposed to coincide. Okay? Now we can say the same thing with reference too. They're conceptually distinct, these two notions again. So you can say, well, there's who or what the speaker referred to, and who or what the addressee took the speaker to refer to. And same thing, when they both go, when it goes well, they coincide. When they don't, it's too bad. What happens when they don't? Well, there isn't some third thing, and I think this is the philosophical question that we found in the theory of reference. There's some idea that independently of what the speaker was going on in the speaker's head, and independently of what was going on in the addressee's head, there's some fact of the matter that's completely independent of what's going on in the heads of the speaker and the hero. And that's how I think we get into the type of puzzle that Donlan and Kripke and Kaplan have. I mean, look, these are three fantastic philosophers, obviously, but I think they're making the same sort of mistake in a way of thinking there's this, not of thinking there's some third thing, but of thinking there's some serious question in here about which one of these we should be focusing on. And I think the fact of the matter is we should be focusing on both of them. There's who or what the speaker referred to, what the addressee thought the speaker was referring to, and usually these go together. But it's very interesting we can create cases in which they don't. Well, we sort of expect that in a way because we get it with meaning. It'd be strange if we didn't get it with reference. So let's just think about some of the cases now.
Can I say? Yeah. Because I strongly disagree with you, and possibly this is a mistake, but I don't think it's only a philosophical mistake. Because, we tend to believe that we can say something which we don't mean.
That's the way people use the word.
Yeah.
Say it.
And then the point seems to be just that languages have their own properties, and these can create a gap between what you mean and what you say.
That's the intuition that's driving this, yeah.
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 And
but I
you didn't say anything to
So I think so my claim is that theory should not, our theory about how we use language to communicate can be completely, the theoretical vocabulary and the theoretical notions we need to describe what's going on can completely ignore that, okay, without any difficulty, okay. First of all, I've said that the theoretical notion of say that we need is not quite the ordinary notion. The one we need to make sense of is a technical notion. And of course, these are all technical notions, and that definition of speaker reference is a technical notion. And the definition of referring to something with an expression is a technical notion again. But the claim is, those are the notions we need that are going to get us most of what we want in thinking about the way we use language to communicate. I doubt any theory is going to get us everything. It's a question of minimizing the bad results in theorizing about language. And I think this is the way to minimize the bad results when we get to talking about these conflict reference type cases. So let me try and run through what I think is happening, and let's see if we can see if there's some residual worry that you've got after we've gone through the examples. Okay, now people, I mean, there's an amazing amount of literature these examples have generated. I think probably people are familiar. There's the Donnellan case with the man drinking champagne, where, to put it in Donnellan's terms and to put it in our terms, really, the speaker is referring to somebody that, or one way of putting it, the description itself doesn't refer to or denote. Okay, so if you say that, if you have this view about a definite description, that it refers to the unique thing satisfying the descriptive condition, let's suppose that's a sort of traditional view in logic. Okay, it has its denotation or whatever. Okay. And there's a man drinking champagne over in this corner, over here, but I see a guy, and he's looking absolutely miserable and all on his own in the corner. And there's another man over in this corner, he's drinking out of a champagne glass, but he's drinking some fizzy water or something. And he's laughing and having a good time. And I say, the man in the corner drinking champagne is having a great time. And so Donnellan asks, have I said something true, have I said something false? And you feel like, oh, well, this is a complicated case for theory of the semantics of natural language, because it seems to be the case that the semantics tells you that you said something false, because the man in the corner drinking champagne this way over here isn't having a good time. Okay. And Donnellan says, okay, yeah, I see why one would say that, but isn't there a way in which I'm using this expression now, the man in the corner drinking champagne? If I'm trying to say something about that guy over there, that I intend, if he's my intended referent over there, the guy who's actually having a great time in the corner there, isn't that the person who's relevant to the truth conditions of my statement? And there's a strong intuition, says Donnellan, that yes, that's right. It's that guy that's relevant to the truth conditions of what I've said. Okay. And then other people came along and said, yeah, this seems right, and more arguments seem to give some credence to that sort of view. But interestingly, Grice resisted this. Very strange, because Donnellan seems to be saying something. Everybody thinks, oh, God, he's a Grice in here, using all this intention. I think the intention's relevant. And Grice, strangely, resisted this. A lot of people didn't realise this happened, but then Kripke, some years later, also resisted it. Quoted and cited Grice, but didn't cite Grice's actual statement that Grice was himself resisting it, right? Kripke thought he was using Grice's tools to resist Donnellan, but didn't realise that Grice had already used Grice's tools to resist Donnellan. So what does Grice actually say? Grice actually says, and the Grice story and the Kripke story is importantly different, I think, in the end. Grice actually says, look, here's what happened. You said something, the speaker said something false. Said something false, because what's said, the truth conditions of what's said, concern the person that the description is true of. And the person the description is true of, the man in the corner drinking champagne, over here, isn't happy. So what you said is false. But Christ says, but what you meant was true, because what you meant concerned the guy over there,